Articulatory phonetics, a branch of phonetics. It explains how humans produce speech sounds via the interaction of different physiological structures. So physiological structures, when we have a message from the brain, how it is encoded, how it is received by the articulatory muscles, and how it works on the coming air from the lungs. So it discusses all these things. So concerned with the transformation of aerodynamic energy into acoustic energy. So the coming air, the body of air coming from the lungs is compressed or have certain forces of different articulators, and as a result this aerodynamic energy changes into acoustic energy, sound energy, which gives certain words to the receiver of the message. So in articulatory phonetics we want to know how they fall into patterns, how sounds are fall into different patterns. We have different names for different patterns. We have articulatories, we have bilabial sounds, we have labiodental sound, we have alveolar sound, we have plosives, we have affricate, we have fricative. So we put these sounds into different patterns. So this is what we study in articulatory phonetics. How they change in different circumstances. So we know that, for example, we study that how a voiceless sound changes into a certain circumstances into a voice sound. So we study all these things, how a plosive sound is produced in a certain circumstances, and how we do not use it use an aspirated sound in a certain circumstance. For example, the word people, in the first place we use it aspirated, in the second place we did not use it aspirated. So we discuss these aspects under this topic. So what aspects of sounds are necessary for conveying the meaning of what is being said? So what aspect? For example, we convey meaning through putting certain stress on certain part of the word. So we discuss that, for example, we have a word increase. So increase and increase, we put a pressure on certain part of the word and get a meaning as a noun or as a verb. So articulatory phonetics deals with the sender rather than the receiver of the message. So under the heading articulatory phonetics, we discuss what it is that the speaker makes or uses when he is making or she is making a speech. We do not discuss here what does the listener listen. So the apparatus of speech, the airstream, a very important element, because without airstream we cannot make a speech. A stream of air coming from the lungs producing speech. So the air coming from the lungs produces sound speech. So the lungs act as a bellows, pushing air through the throat, nose and mouth. So basically the same sound coming from the lungs is able to produce sounds which sometimes we take out through the oral cavity and sometimes through the nasal cavity. Ingressive sound. When we are breathing in the air, we do not generally make sounds, especially in English language. We do not have an ingressive sound. Though when we are whispering, we may be able to make sounds or speech on this ingressive mechanism. But in English or in many languages of the world, we do not make words or we do not speak when we are taking in the air. Aggressive sound When we are taking the air out, we generally make sounds on those airwaves coming from the lungs. So this is egressive sound mechanism. So the air coming from the lungs travels into the larynx or the trachea. At the top of the trachea we have larynx, in which there are vocal folds. Vocal folds are very important for making human speech sound. From the vocal folds, the air gets out into the pharynx cavity. Pharynx cavity is a resonance chamber, very important. And from the pharynx, it comes into the oral cavity or it goes into the nasal cavity. If we look at the upper jaw, we can start from the upper lip. Very important for making sound. Behind the upper lip, we have upper teeth, important for producing sounds like th and the. And then behind the upper teeth we have this ridgy surface, which is alveolar ridge. And then we come on to the hard palate, and then from back to the hard palate we have soft palate, also known as velum. And then we come on to the uvula. Uvula is a hanging appendage which is very important for making nasal sounds. When it is down, we can make a nasal sound. When it is up, it means that it is stuck to the wall of the pharynx. We cannot make a nasal sound. We can only make an oral sound. So this is the figure which tells us different articulators. All these places are articulators. They help us in producing different sounds. So then we have tongue. This is the tip of the tongue. Then comes the front part, and then mid area, and the back area, and then the root. So all these parts are very important. The lower jaw is active articulator, and the upper jaw is passive articulator. So understanding this is very crucial for understanding articulatory phonetics. Besides that, we must know that when the air comes through the lungs into the trachea, and at the top of trachea we have larynx, we have these vocal folds. So in this shape the vocal folds are closed, so the air forces them open, and as a result there is a vibration in the vocal cord folds, and this vibration creates voice sounds. And similarly we have this figure in which you can see the spirals of the rings of the trachea. The cords are open. The air can get out from the trachea into the pharynx very easily without moving the cords, and there is no vibration, so the sounds thus produced are voiceless. So the basic difference between, for example, voiced and voiceless sound is the opening and the vibration of the vocal fold. Vocal folds are very important in producing sounds, right? So the difference between a p and a b is that when we produce a p, the vocal cords were apart from each other, and there was a passage, there was no vibration, right? There was a opening which we call glottis, right? And when we produce a b, the cords were closed, and the air forces them open, and as a result there was vibration. So this is how we produce different sounds. So in articulatory phonetics we come to know that how human speech sounds are produced, what is the mechanism, how the air is manipulated, obstructed, modified at different places in this oral cavity.